Chapter 5. Letter from Miss Mina Murray to Miss Lucy Westenra. 9th May. My dearest Lucy, please forgive my long delay in writing, but I have simply been overwhelmed with work. The life of an assistant schoolmistress is sometimes trying. I am longing to be with you and by the sea, where we can talk freely together and build our sandcastles in the air. I have been working very hard lately because I want to keep up with Jonathan's studies, and I have been practicing shorthand very assiduously. When we are married, I shall be able to be of use to Jonathan, and if I can stenograph well enough, I can take down whatever he wants to say in this way and write it out for him on the typewriter, which also I am practicing very hard. He and I sometimes write letters in shorthand, and he is keeping a stenographic journal in his travels abroad. When I am with you, I shall keep a journal in the same way. I don't mean one of those 2 pages a week with Sundays squeezed in the corner diaries, but a sort of journal which I can write in whenever I feel inclined to. I do not suppose there will be much interest for it in other people, but it is not intended for them. I may show it to Jonathan one day, if there is anything in it worth sharing, but it's really just an exercise book. I shall try to do what I see lady journalists do, interviewing and writing descriptions, and trying to remember conversations. I am told, with a little practice, one can remember all that goes on or that one hears said during a day. However, we shall see. I will tell of my little plans when we meet. I have just a few hurried lines from Jonathan from Transylvania. He is well, and will be returning in about a week. I am longing to hear all of his news. It must be so nice to see strange countries. I wonder if Jonathan and I, shall ever see them together. Oh, there is the 10 o'clock bell ringing. Goodbye. Your loving Mina. Tell me of all the news that you write. You have not told me anything in a long time. I hear rumors, and especially of a tall, handsome, curly-haired man. Letter. Lucy Westenra to Mina Murray, 17 Chartham Street, Wednesday. My dearest Mina, I must say you tax me very unfairly with being a bad correspondent. I wrote to you twice since we last parted, and your last letter was only your second. Besides, I have nothing to tell you. There is really nothing to interest you. Town is very pleasant just now, and we go to a good deal of picture galleries and for walks and rides in the park. As to the tall, curly-haired man, I suppose it was the one who was with me at the last pop. Someone has evidently been telling tales. That was Mr. Holmwood. He often comes to see us, and he and Mamma get along very well together. They have so many things to talk about in common. We sometimes go along. So we met some time ago a man who would do just for you, if you weren't so already engaged to Jonathan. He is an excellent parti, being handsome, well off, and of very good birth. He is a doctor, and just very, really clever. Just fancy! He is only 19 and 20, and he has an immense lunatic asylum all under his care. Mr. Holmwood introduced me to him, and he called us here to see us, and often comes now more than ever. I think he is one of the most resolute men I have ever saw, and yet the most calm. He seems absolutely imperturbable. I can fancy what a great, wonderful power he must have over his patients. He also has a curious habit of looking one straight in the face, as if trying to read one's thoughts. He tries this on very much with me on many occasions, but I am flattered myself that he has got a tough nut to crack. I know that from my own glass. Did you ever try to read your own face? I do, and I can tell you that it's not a bad study, and gives you more trouble than you can well fancy if you've never tried it. He says I can afford him a curious psychological study, and I humbly think so. I do not, as you know, take sufficient interest in dress to be able to describe the new fashions. Dress is a bore. That is slang again, but never mind. Arthur says it to that every day. There, it is all out. Mina, we have told all our secrets to each other since we were children. We have slept together and eaten together, laughed and cried together, and now that I have spoken, I would like to speak more. Oh, Mina, couldn't you guess? I love him. I am blushing as I write, for although I think he loves me, he has not told me so in words. But oh, Mina, I love him. I love him. I love him. That does me good. I wish I were with you, dear, sitting by the fireplace, undressing as we used to sit, and I would try to tell you what I feel. I do not know how I am writing this even to you. I am afraid to stop, or I should tear this letter up, and do not want to stop, for if I do so want to tell you all. Let me hear from you at once, and tell me all that you think about it. Mina, I must stop. Good night. Bless me in your prayers. And Mina, pray for my happiness. Lucy. P.S. I need not tell you that this is a secret. Good night again. L. Letter. Lucy Westenra to Mina Murray. 24th May. My dearest Mina, thanks and thanks and thanks again for your sweet letter. It was so nice to be able to tell you and have your sympathy. My dear, it never rains but it pours. How true the old proverbs here. Here I am, who shall be 20 in September, and yet I have never had a proposal till today. Not a real proposal. And today I have 3. Just fancy! 3 proposals in one day. Isn't it awful? I feel sorry, really and truly sorry for the 2 of the poor fellows. Oh, Mina, I am so happy I don't know what to do with myself. And the 3 proposals. But for goodness sake, don't tell any of the girls, or they'll get all sorts of extravagant ideas and imagining themselves injured and slighted if in their very first day at home they not get 6 at the least. Some girls are so vain. You and I, Mina dear, who are engaged and are going to settle down soon soberly into old married women, can despise vanity. Well, I must tell you about the 3, but you must keep it a secret, dear, from everyone. Except, of course, Jonathan. You will tell him, because I would, if I were in your place, certainly tell Arthur. A woman ought to tell her husband everything. Don't you think so, dear? But I must be fair. Men like women, certainly their wives, to be quite as fair as they are, and women, I'm afraid, are not always quite as fair as they should be. Well, my dear, number 1 came just before lunch. I told you of him, Dr. John Seward, the lunatic asylum man, with the strong jaw and the good forehead. He was very cool outwardly, but was nervous all the same. He had evidently been schooling himself in all sorts of the little things and remembering them, but he also managed to sit down on his silk hat, which men don't generally when they're cool. And then when he wanted to appear at ease, he kept playing with a lancet in a way that makes me nearly scream. He spoke to me, Mina, very straightforwardly. He told me how dear I was to him, though he had only known me for so little, and what his life would be like if he could help me and cheer him. He was going to tell me how unhappy he was if I did not care for him, but when he saw me cry, he said that he was a brute and would not add to my present trouble. Then he broke off and asked if I could love him in time. When I shook my head, his hands trembled, and then with some hesitation he asked if I cared for anyone else. He put it nicely, saying that he did not want to write my confidence from me, but to only know. Because if a woman's heart was free, a man might have hope. And then, Mina, I felt a sort of duty to tell him that there was someone. I told him that much, and when he stood up, and he looked very strong and very grave as he took both of my hands in his, and he said I hoped I would be happy, and that if I ever wanted a friend, I must count on him as one of my best. Oh, Mina, dear, I can't help but cry. But you must excuse this letter for being all blotted. Being proposed to is all nice and all that sort of thing, but it isn't at all a happy thing when you have to see a poor fellow whom you know loves you honestly going away, looking all broken-hearted. and to know no matter what he may say at the moment, you are passing quite out of his life. My dear, I must stop at present. I feel so miserable, even though I am so very happy. Evening. Arthur has just gone, and I feel in better spirits than when I left off, so I can go on and tell you about the other day. Well, my dear, number 2 came after lunch. He is such a nice fellow, an American from Texas, and he looks so young and so fresh that it seems almost impossible that he's been so many places and had such adventures. I sympathize with poor Desdemona when she had such a dangerous stream poured into her ear, even by a black man. I suppose that we women are such cowards that we think a man will save us from fears and we will marry him. I know now what I would do if I were a man and wanted to make a girl love me. No, I don't, for there was Mr. Morris telling us his stories, and Arthur never told any, and yet... My dear, I am somewhat previous. Mr. Quincy P. Morris found me alone. It seems that a man does find a girl alone. No, he doesn't. For Arthur tried twice to make a chance, and I am helping him all I could. I am not ashamed to say that now. I must tell you beforehand that Mr. Morris doesn't always speak slang. That is to say, he never does so to strangers or before them, for he is very well educated and has exquisite manners. But he found out that it amused me to hear him talk American slang. And whenever I was present, and there was no one to be shocked by, he said such funny things. I'm afraid, my dear, he has to invent it all, for it fits exactly into whatever else he has to say. But it's a way his slang was. I do not know myself if I shall ever speak slang. I do not know if Arthur likes it, as I have never heard him use any of it yet. Well, Mr. Morris sat down beside me, and looking as happy and jolly as he could, but I could tell all the same he was very nervous. He took my hand in his and said ever so sweetly, "Now, Miss Lucy, I know I ain't good enough to regulate the fixing of your little shoes, but I'm guess if you will wait till you find a man that is, you will join them then 7 young women with the lamps when you quit. Won't you just hitch up alongside me and let's go down to the long road together? Drive in double harnesses?" Well, he did look so good-humored and jolly that it didn't seem so hard to refuse him as it did poor Dr. Seward. So I said as lightly as I could that I did not know of anything of hitching. I wasn't broken into a harness at all yet. Then he said that he had spoken in a light manner, and he had hoped if he had made a mistake in doing so grave, so monumentous an occasion for him, I would forgive him. He really did look serious when he was saying it, but I couldn't help feeling a bit serious too. I know, Mina, you think me a horrid flirt, that I couldn't help but feeling a sort of exaltation that he was number 2 in one day. And then, my dear, before I could say a word, he began pouring a perfect torrent of love-making, laying his very heart and soul at my feet. He looked so earnest over it that I shall never again think a man be playful always, and never earnest, because he is merry at times. I suppose he saw something in my face which checked him, for he suddenly stopped and said with a sort of manly fervor that I could have loved him for it if I would been free. "Lucy, you're an honest girl, I know. I should not be speaking to you as if I am now if I did not believe you were clean grit, right through to the very depths of your soul. Tell me, like one good fellow to another, is there anyone else that you care for? And if there is, I'll never trouble you a hair's breadth again. But if you let me, be a faithful friend." My dear Mina, why are men so noble when women are so little worthy of them? Here I was making fun of this great-hearted, true gentleman. I burst into tears. I'm afraid, my dear, that you will think this a very sloppy letter in more ways than one, and I felt very badly for it. Why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as her want, and save all this trouble? But this is hearsay, and I must say, I am glad to say that Though I was crying, I was able to look into Mr. Morris's brave eyes, and told him straight out, yes, there is someone I love, though he has not told me yet that he even loves me. I was right to speak to him so frankly, for quite a light came into his face, and he pulled out both his hands and took mine. I think I put them into his, and said in a hearty way, "That's my brave girl. It's better worth being late for a chance of winning you than being time for any other girl in the world. Don't cry, my dear. If it's for you, I'm a hard nut to crack, and I take it standing up. If that other fella doesn't know his happiness, well, he better look for it soon, or have to deal with me. Little girl, your honesty and pluck have made me a friend, and that's rare than a lover. It's more unselfish anyway. My dear, I'm gonna have to have a pretty lonely walk between this and Kingdom Come. Won't you give me one kiss? It'll be something to keep off the darkness every now and then. You can, if you like, for that other good fellow. He must be a good fellow, my dear, and a fine fellow, or you could not love him, has spoken yet." That quite won me, Mina, for it was brave and sweet of him, and noble, too, to a rival, wasn't it? And he's so sad. So I leaned over and kissed him. He stood up with my two hands in his, and looked down into my face. I am afraid I was blushing very much, and said, "Little girl, I hold you in my hand, and you've kissed me. If these things don't make us friends, nothing ever will. Thank you for your sweet honesty, and goodbye." He wrung my hand, and taking his hat, went straight out of the room, without looking back, without a tear or a quiver or pause. And I am crying like a baby. Oh, why must a man be like that, be made unhappy, when there are lots of girls who would worship the very ground he trod upon? I know I would be if I were free. Not only do I do not want to be free. My dear, this quite upset me, and I feel I cannot write of happiness just at once, after telling you of it. But I do not wish to tell of the number 3 until all can be happy. Ever your loving Lucy. P.S. Oh, about number 3. I needn't tell you that number 3, need I? Besides, it's all so confused. It seemed for a moment from his coming into the room till both his arms were around me and he was kissing me. I am very, very happy, and I don't know what I have done to deserve it. I must try in the future to show that I am not ungrateful to God for all of his goodness to me in sending me such a lover, such a husband, and such a friend. Goodbye. Dr. Seward's diary, kept in phonograph. 25th May. Ebb tide in appetite today. Cannot eat, cannot rest, so diary instead. Since my rebuff of yesterday, I have had a sort of empty feeling. Nothing in the world seems to sufficient importance to be worth doing. As I knew that the only cure for this sort of thing was work, I went amongst the patients. I picked out one who had afforded me a study of much interest. He is so quaint that I am determined to understand him as I can today. Today, I seem to get nearer ever than was before to the heart of his mystery. I questioned him more fully than I ever done, with a view to make myself master of the facts of his hallucination. In my manner of doing so, I now see something of cruelty. I seem to wish to keep him to the point of his madness, a thing which I avoid with my patients as I would do the mouth of hell itself. Memo. Under what circumstances would I not avoid the pit of hell? Omnita romansa venienda sunt. Hell has its price. Verb sap. If there be anything behind this instinct, it would be valuable to trace it afterwards more accurately, so I would better commerce to do so. Therefore, R.M. Renfield, Stat 59, age 59, sanguinary in temperament, great physical strength, morbidly excitable, periods of gloom, ending in some fixed idea which I cannot make out. I presume that the sanguine temperament itself and the disturbing influence end in a mentally accomplished fashion. Possibly a dangerous man, probably dangerous if unselfish. In selfish man, caution is assured, a armor for their foes, for themselves. What I think at this point, where the self is fixed point in centripetal force is balanced with the centrifugal. When duty, a cause, etc. is the fixed point, the latter force is paramount, and only accident, or a series of accidents, can balance it. Letter, Quincy P. Morris to Honorable Arthur Homewood, 25th May. My dear Art, we've told yarns by the campfire up in the prairies, and dressed one another's wounds after trying to land in at the Marcavasa, and drinking healths at the shores of Lake Titicaca. There are more yarns to be told, and other wounds to be healed, and other health to be drunk. Would you let this be at my campfires tomorrow night? I have no hesitation in asking you, as I know a certain lady is engaged to us into a certain dinner party, and that you are free. There will only be one other, our old pal at the Korea, Jack Seward. He's coming too, and we both want to mingle our weeps over the wine cup and to drink a health to all our hearts to the happiest man in the whole wide world, who has won the noblest heart that God ever made, and the best worth winning. We promise to welcome you, a hearty welcome, and a loving greeting, and a health as true as your own right hand. We shall both swear to leave you at home if you drink too deep to a certain pair of eyes. Come. Yours and ever always, Quincy P. Morris. Telegraph from Arthur Homewood to Quincy P. Morris, 26th May. Count me in every time. I bear messages that will make you both your ears tingle. Art.